Welcome back, my friends. Currently, we're on day 286 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and in today's video, there's going to be no video of me. I personally am not feeling my best and looking my best, but I really want to make an update video for you guys today because there's a lot going on in the world. This past weekend, I was traveling. I got to visit Chicago and go see an NFL game with my parents. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I share pictures and stories of fun stuff I do in my life. But if you want to see me have arguments, dumb arguments with dumb people, you can follow me on Twitter. And the first thing we should mention is that the number of estimated Russian soldiers killed in action is now over 90,000. Russia is losing between 500 and 700 soldiers a day. They're being quite reckless with their forces. And the devastating impact of this number, I don't think is being realized by the Russian people. This number doesn't include wounded in action, missing in action, and prisoners of war. And if you've never seen the population pyramid for Russia, this is what it looks like. Look at the youngest generation, men between the ages of 20 and 24. It contracts like this, one as an echo from the generation of men lost because of World War II, but it was compounded by the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s. So in Russia, 30 years ago, the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was lots of economic uncertainty and uncertainty about the future of Russia. So the birth rate just naturally declined in the 90s. So Russia is attempting to fight this war, and traditionally it's men between the ages of 18 and 28, most likely to be conscripted, most likely to be mobilized. This is partially why we're seeing so many older men in photos of being mobilized, because there just isn't a lot of these men in this age bracket for Russia to draw on to fight this war. So where I'm going with this is this generation is being annihilated. Russia is just basically throwing them away. And for decades, Russia is not going to recover from this. It's a demographic crisis compounded and made worse by this war. And Putin's 70 years old. I don't think he cares what how the demographics are going to look or how Russia is doing in 30 years, but it's bad news for Russia. So here's the top story from this week. Blasts hit Russian bomber bases used to launch Ukrainian grid attacks. And I'm sure that this caught the Russians by surprise. And there were two Air Force bases that were pretty far away from Ukrainian territory. The first one is called Ingalls, and just looking at the map, this is close to 400 kilometers away. So if we zoom in, I can show you the airstrip where you can see these bombers are parked, and this is one of the bases where Russia is launching long-range cruise missiles from. The other one is called Digalivo, and this is pretty far away from Ukrainian territory, probably over 400 kilometers. And if you notice, here's Moscow, not that far away from where the Ukrainians just struck. Once again, we can zoom in and I can show you this airbase where all of these, the bombers are usually parked over here, and over here are the fighter jets. So what Ukraine did is they launched a drone attack against these two air bases, hoping this would disrupt Russia's plans for their next round of missile attacks against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. It didn't exactly work because Russia still launched another massive missile attack against Ukraine. But Russia's success rate in getting these missiles through Ukrainian airspace is pretty embarrassing. So normally they launch closer to 100 or 90. This time they only did 70. And 60 of them were confirmed intercepted or shot down. There's an incredible video, I'll link it in a pinned comment down below, of a German-supplied Gepard, SPAAG, using autocannons to shoot down one of these cruise missiles. Anytime you can use bullets or an autocannon to shoot down a $1 million long-range cruise missile, this is a huge win for the Ukrainian forces. So, how did Ukraine do it? Well, the speculation, I don't think Ukraine is ever going to confirm this for security reasons, but Ukraine modified Soviet era jet drones to hit bomber bases. And once again, they struck these bomber bases hours before Russia was going to launch their coordinated missile strike. Russia, I think, has been a little too predictable with these attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. They always seem to happen on Mondays. So Ukraine obviously had the intelligence, and their attempt was to disrupt the launching of this next round against their energy infrastructure. And what is the tactical damage? Several planes were damaged or destroyed, and 3 Russian soldiers were killed. So this was a significant win, when you think about what it cost the Ukrainians to put together this operation and get these drones ready to launch. There is satellite photos. This one from angles. This pool here is more than likely firefighting foam to put out the fire, but if this plane was on fire, then more than likely it's not flying anytime soon. Here's the satellite images from the other airbase, and maybe the damage here is more extensive. I guess this is the before the explosion and after the explosion. And we do have actual pictures taken by the Russians showing the damage. This is some kind of maintenance vehicle, maybe recharging the vehicle. Perhaps there were Russian soldiers working on this plane at the time of attack, and those are the 3 that lost their lives. Here's the structural damage to the back of the plane. Once again, this plane probably needs extensive repairs and isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Here is possibly the drone that the Ukrainians used. This is, I don't know if this is from the launch or probably sometime before. But here's what Thomas Theiner has to say. Ukraine shoots down 80 to 90% of Russia's most modern cruise missiles with donated Western air defense systems, and Russia can't even spot a 40-year-old giant drone coming to strike one of their 3 most heavily guarded air bases. Putin fans, Russia still has the second most powerful military in the world. So tactically, 3 Russian soldiers killed, 3 or 4 planes damaged. Not a big deal for the Ukrainians. But strategically, this is a huge deal because if Ukraine is domestically producing their own long-range kamikaze drones that can go up to 1,000 kilometers, then all of this territory is now in play. Ukraine can now strike anything within this range. And I guarantee you, prior to a week ago, all the maintainers, all the pilots, all the officers at this airbase, they thought they were safe. They thought that they were helping to launch these cruise missiles and nothing bad was ever going to happen to them. So Russia has to respond to this. They have to dedicate manpower and resources and time and stress and thinking, air defense systems to protecting all of their assets within a 1,000-kilometer range of Ukraine's borders. Because Russia has no clue how many more of these jet drones do the Ukrainians have, how many more can they build, are there strategic bombers which are just parked on the runway out in the open, are they always at risk now? This is something that they have to consider and take serious. On a related note of striking within Russia, here's the next big story that broke. Ukrainian HIMARS can't fire long-range ATACMS missiles. HIMARS launchers sent to Ukraine are reportedly modified so they can't use ATACMS missiles over fears about potential escalation with Russia. Now, probably what the United States has done, they've either delivered or promised, I think, 36 or 38 of these HIMARS launchers. More than likely, it's just a software change. They dumbed down the software so they couldn't launch ATACMS missiles. These are the longer range missiles that can be fired from the M270, the HIMARS, and the Mars 2. Now, why would the United States do this? Yes, fear of escalation. They don't want American HIMARS trucks that were delivered to Ukraine being used to strike these air bases in Russia. However, if the Ukrainians develop their own domestically produced weapons or drones that can strike these planes, well, that's Russia's fault for starting a war with Ukraine. Nobody in NATO is going to stop the Ukrainians from attacking these air bases or destroying these planes. It just can't be done with HIMARS launchers. So why did the United States nerf, probably with software changes, to prevent Ukraine from launching ATACMS missiles that they don't have? And it's because there are lots of countries around the world that operate the HIMARS or the M270 who also have ATACMS missiles. So the United States didn't want to donate the launchers and then a third country donate the missiles, and then Ukraine just put one and one together to make two. So other countries that currently operate HIMARS is Romania, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, Jordan. But the bigger network is operators of the M270. Egypt, Greece, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Bahrain, Finland, France, Germany, Israel, Italy, South Korea, and the UK. So between all of these countries, is one of them willing to start giving their stockpile of ATACMS missiles to the Ukrainians, and then the Ukrainians use American-donated HIMARS launchers? America just wanted to put in security controls and guarantee that this scenario didn't happen. I think the media ran with this story, and it's not a big deal. If the United States ever wanted to start supplying ATACMS missiles to Ukraine, they would also give a software update, a software patch to give all of the launchers this capability. This is an easy fix if the United States does in the future start supplying ATACMS missiles. And Russia is fighting this war on borrowed time. U.S. intelligence chief says Russia is using up ammunition in Ukraine faster than it can replace it. So what's happening here is the economic and industrial output of the Western countries in NATO can supply the Ukrainians faster than the Russians can domestically produce weapons themselves. On top of that, Russia is using ammunition and weapons faster than they can domestically produce it. This is why Russia is desperate for any kind of military assistance from Iran, why the Russians are begging the North Koreans to give up their stockpiles of artillery rounds. It's hard to make predictions how much is left in their stockpiles, but I mean, we're measuring it in months. We're measuring it in months until Russia is just completely out of artillery ammunition. Next story is that yesterday marked the 28th anniversary of the Budapest Memorandum. Ukraine fulfilled its part of the agreement to voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons in exchange for security assurances from the UK, the United States, and Russia. In hindsight, this was a huge strategic and political blunder by the Ukrainians. As an American, I apologize. These three nations have failed you. I do believe that if Ukraine had held on to at least some of their nuclear weapons, maybe just a small arsenal of about 300 compared to other countries like the UK and France, then no way would Russia have invaded them, attacked them, or gone to war if Ukraine still had a nuclear deterrent. So it's all the more insulting and enraging when the president of France says stuff like this. Kyiv blasts Macron for suggesting security guarantees for Moscow. Europe should discuss, here's the quote, how to give guarantees to Russia the day it returns to the negotiating table. And you know who else demanded security assurances and security guarantees back in the 1940s? And it was Hitler. Hitler wanted to invade France and have buffer regions to have security guarantees to protect the German states. Dictators love saying that they feel threatened and they need security guarantees, therefore, it's okay to invade their neighbors. And this entire argument about NATO expansion, I hate this word because NATO doesn't expand. Member states request to join, and it's a thorough process to get in. And this is the point I want to make in this video, is that Ukraine was never going to join NATO if Russia did not want them to join NATO. The reason why is because all states part of the alliance have to approve a new member to join the alliance. So if Ireland or Georgia or Moldova wants to join NATO, all 30 countries have to agree and have to approve for a new state to join. And we're currently seeing firsthand how difficult this is. As Finland and Sweden want to join NATO, every country in the alliance can now make demands saying that they want certain things before Finland and Sweden are allowed to join NATO. So if Ukraine was ever serious about joining NATO, Russia has all the leverage in the world to stop that from happening. They could say, hey, Turkey, we're going to shut off the gas unless you block NATO from letting in Ukraine. Hey, Germany, we're going to shut off the gas unless you block Ukraine from joining NATO. Hey, Hungary, aren't we friends? Don't you like me? Please stop Ukraine from joining NATO. So Ukraine, realistically, prior to this war, never had a chance, never had a shot at joining NATO as long as Russia economically was supplying all of these other NATO countries that could just unilaterally block anyone from joining the alliance. So Russia's entire argument of feeling threatened and Ukraine was trying to join NATO, realistically, it was never going to happen. Here's a tweet I really enjoyed. We will give security guarantees if Russia will give up its nuclear weapons, and will sign a memorandum on it in Budapest. That's a pretty good burn. Last couple clips and pictures I want to share with you. The first one is good news out of the city of Kherson. About 85% of the city has had its electricity restored. About 70% have had their water services restored. Russia sabotaged everything prior to abandoning the city, and they've been weeks without electricity and water, but slowly services to the people are starting to return. Here's some images from the Moscow Times I want to share with you guys. Darkest time of the year. Moscow's lavish lights contrast with Ukraine's blackout. So on the streets of Kyiv, as we approach the winter solstice, people are living in darkness, living in blackout conditions, in the cold as it is wintertime. However, if we pivot and look at pictures of Moscow, you can see ordinary Russians enjoying their holidays, enjoying their Christmas, going to festivals and enjoying life and pretending like there isn't a war going on that has claimed the lives of 100,000 of their citizens so far this year. I just don't really understand the current Russian mindset. Here's a picture that went viral of a mother and her 2 children taking shelter in the Kyiv metro stop during Russia's most recent bombing campaign against civilian targets. I mean, the expression on this mother's face holding a cell phone to entertain her kids, it just kind of, you kind of feel it. I'm not a parent, but I imagine other parents can 100% understand what this woman is feeling at this moment, just trying to keep her children safe. The final clip is from Yuri. He's a Ukrainian soldier, and on social media, he's known as the Pikachu soldier for having this Pikachu patch on his vest. I've shared some of his clips before. He's pretty good at delivering good messages to people, and this is a video that he put out this week.
Привіт, мої рідні! Хотів вам показати ось такі стихійні меморіали, які хлопці самі на честь своїх полеглих побратимів створюють в місцях найбільш запеклих боїв. Я думаю, що після війни ми всім нашим полеглим героям встановимо красиві пам'ятники. Але мені хочеться вірити, що найкращим пам'ятником їхньому подвигу, їхній великій жертві буде вільна і квітуча країна, в якій пануватимуть справедливість, порядність, яка буде нетерпима до корупції і популізму. А саме головне, громадяни якої завжди пам'ятатимуть, яку високу ціну доводиться платити просто за право бути собою. Завжди пам'ятатимуть, хто вони є і хто поклав своє життя за право бути. Я в це вірю. Вірте і ви. А ще вірте в себе, вірте в Збройні Сили і вірте в Україну. Вічна пам'ять і слава всім полеглим героям. Слава Україні!
That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support my channel. Comments or questions, let me know down below. I really appreciate it, guys. Till the next update video, take care, be safe.